It is often said that you find the worst in people in weddings and in funerals. Well, House of the Dragon certainly keeps that saying going. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below, leave a comment. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Them Thrones, y'all. This is hands down my favorite episode of the season series. This is the one that yep, this is when everything turns. And it is not just the adult actors; the kid actors come in this one and knock it out of the park. So what we have is everyone is showing up for Lena's funeral. You have everyone going through the modes and being of Valerian blood. It is a Valerian ceremony. They put her in a box and they kick her off to sea because they are the people of the sea. But they basically have like a priest who's kind of going over the ceremonies and giving this wonderful eulogy for them. And Butch starts talking about bloodlines and blood and sort of gives Rhaenyra a look, and everybody sort of gives Rhaenyra a look. Because it is a known thing across all places that them ain't Lanner's kids. And so while they do have the Valerian name, they are not Valerian blood. And everybody can sort of see that when you look when you put Daemon's kids next to Rhaenyra's kids, you can clearly see that one of them is of Valerian stock and the other is not. And the world and everybody else sees it. I think the funniest part of the funeral, though, is that when the sort of pointed comment about bloodline comes up, Damon has a good little chuckle. Now, it's his wife's funeral. He's supposed to be sad, but he hears about Valerian blood and knows who it's directing at. He has a good old hearty laugh at that, and that just makes everybody else uncomfortable because they know what the hell we're talking about. It's the guy who laughs at inappropriate times or has those weird comments because he knows what really is going on, and he's the only one willing to laugh. Everybody else is like on pins and needles. That's how uncomfortable that funeral was happening right now. So shout out to Damon for being the only one to kind of have a go at it, even though he's quasi sad. Being sad and also having sort of a mistaken slip and calling his now wife, Allison, his ex wife, who's been long gone, probably because he's seeing his brother become a widow. He offers his brother, Damon, a seat, and Damon shoves it. It's like, I don't want any parts of that. Funeral starts bringing up all types of feelings for everybody. And the Valerians, Lord Valerius and Rhaena, have a bit of a combo in the room, and they start talking about the kingdom. And Rhaena's like, "Hey, maybe we should give up our seats," and start talking about, "Hey, maybe Baela should be the next in line." And and King Lord Corlys is like, "No, we got boys from Rhaenyra. We're fine." And Rhaena's like, "Why are you playing? Like, everybody can see them ain't. That's not your blood. And like, what are you talking about? That's not you." And Lord Valerian is just Corlys is simply like, "Hey, look, real talk. I'm trying to do this for you. Like, they stole your king, your crown a long time ago. I'm just trying to give it back to you." And right now, like, "Hey, bruh, you're not doing this for me. We know what this is about. You're doing this for you. You want to hold on to some type of kingdom. This means so much to you that you're doing it at the expense of our kids. Our daughter is gone now because you're chasing this throne so much." And he's like, he gets kind of called out on it. It is more than that. He starts going on about legacy and like, "Hey, this we should mean something and all this blah 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 blah." She takes her hand and just starts to try to console him and kind of maybe have some semblance of two parents who are grieving their daughter. Maybe we can have this convo. Like, we need to get out of here. Our daughter was trying to come back home. Damien wouldn't let that happen. But now let's regroup, let's reassess, and let's get the hell out of here. Just forget the kingdom. Let's go ahead and live our lives. It's like, like, let's have our those are clearly that's not your blood, so let's give up on that and let's just move on. I forget how they say it, but she basically alludes to the world knows and the history knows that those aren't your kids, like those aren't your grandkids. You know that there's no blood of yours in either of Rhaenyra's kids. And he says, and this is why he probably did the name thing at the very beginning, knowing that his son may not be able to produce with her. But he says history knows names. They don't know blood. They know names. And as long as that Valerian name stays at the end of those kids, I don't give a damn whose blood that is. They're my grandkids. So I'm going to take them. Because for him, kingdom is all he cares about. Be damned if anything else, be damned with what happens to his family. That is the goal. While that's all happening, Daemon and Rhaenyra go for a walk just to kind of talk about stuff. Now, they kind of exchange passing glances right after the funeral, but Alicent was kind of hip to it, and Rhaenyra had to exit stage left. I'm like, all right, not paying attention, and I'm being watched. But then they go for a walk where nobody's around. And they just start talking about life. They start talking about how the situation with Lenore and how it's not working, how it didn't work, how they tried to lay down. Like, so they did attempt to do it the natural way with each other, just didn't work. And Daemon knows very well who those kids' fathers actually is. And Rhaenyra simply says, like, it felt good to be desired. Like, I'm married to somebody who was a great man. He's a really good man, but he does not desire me in that way, and it felt good to be desired. The only time that I felt that was with you, and you left me. And they kind of have a falling out, then falling in. She makes a move on him. He reciprocates, and they make love. This isn't sex. Like, this isn't some of the gratuitous and violent sex that you typically see in Game of Thrones. For the first time, there is actually a connection with them. Uncle and niece, and no, whatever. That we're just gonna have to deal with it. They're talking about sisters getting with brothers. It's just a real mess in this. But they make love, and it is a beautiful and well shot and gorgeous looking thing. Like the moment that I think they've both been waiting for, and that fans of the series have been waiting for, albeit very disturbing. While that is happening, though, the kids are afoot. This is where this episode sort of kicks off into high gear and becomes something completely different, and everything escalates and goes times 10, because don't nobody play around with people's kids. We see earlier that Prince Aemond and Aegon are looking upon Helena, who's their sister, and saying, like, how is she related to us? Aemond knows that in the way the lineage goes, he's going to have to betroth himself to her, while Aemon's been betrothed to one of the Valerian kids already. And so they kind of just have a little discourse, like, she's weird. I don't know. Like, I do like people with long legs like she does, but that's about all we have in common. And she's still out there doing her spider rituals and all of that stuff. What happens later is that while parents are off, while Rhaenyra and Daemon are off making love and everybody else is sort of asleep, Aemon's in search of his dragon. Like, the one thing that he's been eluding him, he's trying to get his dragon. And remember, Laena, mom who's just passed, had a dragon. The dragon that killed her, there's a dragon now that does not have an owner. And so Aegon feels it's his time to kind of go try this. And he sneaks up on the dragon and tries to attach himself to it and become one with it. And in a roundabout way, he does. He goes off on a run. It's a little wild at first, but he finally bucks it and gets the dragon to sort of be with him. But the way that history goes, the Valerians, Baela and them, should be the ones next to be the riders for her mom's dragon, not Aegon. Aegon is sort of taking matters into his own hand, jumped the line, and he's taking the dragon. And so there becomes this sort of tiff. Aegon is there with both the Valerian kids and both the Targaryens from Rhaenyra, both are her boys. And they are kind of having a tiff with Aegon. And Aegon's like, hey, you snooze, you lose. Like, I'm tied with this dragon. Sorry, but I'm not. Tough. And they start having a fight, starting a tiff. Valerian girls start punching him. He punches him right back like a grown man. He knocks him out. And then the Rhaenyra's kids start attacking, and it starts going tit for tat to the point where they start doing like a four-man battle on them. They're still just all of it beating them. But remember, Aegon has been training with Sir Criston, so he's got a little bit more fighting skills than any of those four together, and he's still handling them. But also, he is saying some disparaging things about the Rhaenyra's kids' lineage and saying that they're bastards, and we all know who their parents are. And I just want to remind you that both Baela and Rhaena also does not have a dragon. And so that's why she's extremely upset that Aegon sort of jumped the line. But the brothers, Jacaerys brings out a knife to sort of protect himself from the rock. the knife slips. His brother, Jacaerys' brother, grabs Lucerys, and uh, one more mentioning of the, the bastardization of them, and he slices Aegon's face right across his eye, and blood just spurts all over the place. He's it's ugly. It's a permanently damaged. And then we have the ramifications of that is that we have to call King Viserys. Grandpa has to come. Grandpa to some, dad to some, has to come in, and they have to basically hold court. And first parents on the scene are Alicent and Viserys, and they're kind of just figuring out the lay of the land. Like, what happened? How did we get to this point? Who was protecting them? Who wasn't watching? And they're like, look, we're asleep. It's nighttime. Why the hell are we watching these kids? Like, they should be in bed. They start learning about the dragon. Like, things started coming out, and basically Rhaenyra then shows up with Daemon. No one's aware. Like, it doesn't. No one's confused or questioning why they're coming in together. She just says she went for a walk, and Daemon kind of just say, like, when you have this, all the families are coming in, no one's questioning that. But her husband, their father, Jacaerys and Lucerys' father, aren't there. Laenor did not show up, and it gets questioned why. But basically, court's happening. Rhaenyra's checking on her kids. Aegon's eye is gone. That's a wrap. It ain't coming back. He's getting stitched up. He's gonna be forever permanently blind in that eye. And Alicent is seeing red. She's like, my boy is scarred. We can't have this. And Rhaenyra says, hey, this is where it goes get dicey because Rhaenyra, you bring it up, but everybody knows it's true. But Rhaenyra is telling like, hey, they spoke ill of my son and the lineage of my son, calling them bastards. Something has to be done by that because you're questioning the king, you're questioning rightful prince's heir in the lineage, and I guess that it's frowned upon. So Rhaenyra brings it up and saying like the reason why he attacked because one he was protecting himself, but then they were also throwing disparaging remarks. Disparaging remarks being about the lineage, which Alicent's like, okay, the protecting the part, but like everybody knows this. Like, why the hell are you freaking out? But she can't say that because she is still queen to King Viserys and kind of has to be at sort of a patient with how all this comes out. So King Viserys is straight up asking Aegon, hey, where did you hear this from? Because you didn't come up with this on your own. Where did you hear about the lack of their lineage? And his one sounds terrible. His one good eye actually looks at Alicent. He looks at his mom, but her mom, Alicent's freaking out like, oh God, don't throw me under the bus because that's going to end up terrible for me if I hear about that. But that's where he initially goes. Like, that's where it is. But then he's like, nope, heard this from Aemon, my brother. My brother said it. And so then King Viserys goes up to his brother and is like, where did you hear it from? And he just keeps it real. Like, everybody know. It ain't news. Everybody knows this. This ain't, look, she out there. We know that those aren't Valyrian bloods. Look at them. And then King Viserys kind of just like, all right, call it. No one else is questioning these kids' lineage. And we're going to bed. That's the end of this. Everybody's settled. Calm down. I never want to hear about this again. The next time anybody mentions or questions Rhaenyra's lineage or what those kids' lineage are, they're getting their tongues removed. And he starts to walk away. And then Rhaenyra says, thank you, Father. Alicent like, no, that ain't good enough. That ain't gonna work for me. That's not sufficient. Like, my kid's eye is gone. And then things turn up even more from there. He's like, that is all, we're done here. And he turns and walks away. And as he's walking away, Alicent goes and grabs the knife that he's holding and charges at Rhaenyra. Technically, she's charging after Jacaerys and Lucerys to take out one of their eyes, but Rhaenyra is protecting them. So she stops them, and they got each other arm by arm. At that point, Sir Christian tries to make a beeline because he is her protector. I forgot to mention there was a point where Alicent actually asked, she's like, I can't do anything, but Alicent was like, yo, Sir Christian, go take that kid's eye. And Christian was like, no, I'm a protector of you. I ain't doing that. But in this point, because protection is coming, he comes around, but Daemon blocks that. And everybody's sort of at a standstill, protecting who they can, but watching this and making sure that this doesn't get too far out of hand. She has a knife. at Rhaenyra, and Rhaenyra's protecting her kids and blocking it with her arm. King Viserys is behind them, telling Alicent to put the knife down. Uh, it's an intense sequence. They both have tears in their eyes. Because not only is this happening and they're trying to protect their kids, they're also realizing that this is probably the final. This is it. There is no returning from any type of friendship now. Like, her kid's maimed. You're trying to maim my kid. This means all bets are off from this point on. And Rhaenyra says a line to her was like, finally, now everybody can see who you truly are. You're now truly showing who you are, who I've seen you be all this time. Now I see it. Because Rhaenyra, while I don't think Alicent has been that devious in anything, she has been calculating. Some of that because of her father. Rhaenyra has already always seen those moves and movements. I felt that that was the sneaky way about doing things. And now she's like, yeah, now they all know. Now they all know you about that life. And so then they break apart because Alicent slices Rhaenyra's arm, and blood just starts pouring down her hand. And it ends when Aegon sort of comes up and is like, hey, look, I started this. I took her dragon. They took my eye. Tit for tat. It's a win-win. It's an even. We're even. Everybody's a draw. And at that point, Viserys like, all right, we're going to call it a night. And these funerals be bugging. That's the high point of the episode. We then see the fallout and basically everyone kind of hunkering down and deciding what the next move is after that. We see Sir Otto Hightower, the Hand, come into Lady Hightower, Alicent's his daughter's room, and show so much pride. She's fearful. She's like, oh my God, now they all are afraid of me. They're whispering, they're calling me out. And Otto's like, nah. I always thought that you were too weak to be able to have the bite or fight to do what it is you need to do to put your kids on that throne. But now I see it. So I need you to do me a favor. I'm gonna need you to bring that back down, hide it, and we'll strike. We'll know when to strike. But I now know you about that life. That I'm no longer worried. I'm here. We're gonna get this throne. I need you to do me a favor though. Go into the king's room now. Be apologetic. Be sincere. Let him believe that you are apologetic. Say, hey, my kid's eye, I got really frightened and scared, and use that. But lay low. We're gonna move. And then they start sailing back off to the keep. On that boat ride, the remaining Strong, Lara Strong, who set his brother and father ablaze. He comes to Alicent's side and is like, hey, look, do you want me to go handle this? Like, he took out your kid's eyes. Do you want me to go handle and take out one of their kids' eyes? He's like, no, that won't be necessary. But, and this is where this changes. At the beginning of this episode, she was very, apologetic. She didn't, while, yes, she wanted something to happen, she didn't want his brother and his father to be killed because he didn't want those kids to lose their father. But now all bets are off. You're maiming my kids. So now she's like, maybe I should keep this strong character around. So she just lets them know, no, don't do anything for this, but lie in wait. It's going to be good to have someone like yourself available to me when I need it. And discretion is of the most importance. And so he nods and he's like, yep, I'm here for you. Let me know. Put me in, coach, whenever you need me. So now Alicent has Sir Christian on her hand for protection to do all the nightly stuff, but he has a moral code. And then she has the dirty one to do all the filthy stuff that she can't get her hands dirty with. Rhaenyra and Laenor have a conversation because she's like, you weren't there at the thing. And he's like, I should have been there. He's like, yeah, that should be our house motto because you're never there. But they have a heart to heart. They're like, look, I honestly wanted these kids to be yours. Like the few times that we tried to lay together and it didn't work, I was genuinely upset. And he apologizes for who he is, like his sexuality. He basically comes out as like, I wish God didn't make me the way I am. And Rhaenyra's like, no, hold on. You are a good man. I don't want you to feel bad about anything that you've done. We made a pact. We tried. But it's clear that it's starting to not work because people are asking too many questions. Things aren't clear. Like it's getting messy for everybody, and this isn't working the way that I think we had initially intended for this to work. But he's like, I'll stay here. I'm not going to war. These kids need me. I love these kids. And she's like, I know you do. I know you do. But it's not the love that I think they need. But we'll figure this out. And he's like, I'm going to stick here. We're going to make this. We're going to make all of this work. Then it seems like we get a devious Rhaenyra because she goes to talk to Daemon. And she has a convo with Daemon. It's like, hey, look, they've got their family. The Valyrians are who they are. They're the sea. Alicent and her family are who they are. But I need to make my stuff stronger. And I need to figure it out. And the best way that I can say is that if you and I bond, you and I know we're fire and fire. We belong together. This is going to work. And it keeps our blood pure. And we put an actual honest heir next up on the throne because these guys aren't technically Valyrians. And Daemon's kind of like, sure, I guess. We could do that. However, you're still married. And to make that happen, you'd have to, like, he has to die. And she's like, yeah, no. And so it seems like that is what her plan is, that she's going to go kill him, that she's going to do some of the devious stuff that Alicent typically does. And I believe, and you guys might have to help me here. I've not read the books. I'm doing that on purpose because I don't want to spoil anything, but I believe this is where they sort of do a departure because I believe in the books, both Valyrian kids do become killed. But they set up this ruse where they get someone to hire to go fight and attack Lenore in the Valyrian kingdom, in his own room, Lord Corlys's room. They start a fight, but they don't see the culmination of the fight. The kid Paige runs off to go get guards. When they come back, they just see a body that is being burned, and it is believed that it is Lenore. Rhaena, poor thing, has lost both her kids. She's crying just like a complete mess, and Corlys is flipping out. It makes a lot of the things that happened earlier in the episode where Rhaena was like, is this worth losing your kid? Now you've lost both your kids. And then we see a huge wedding ceremony. Now what's interesting in this wedding ceremony, they do like a blood oath, they're kissing, they're doing their thing. But both kids, the kids that Daemon had with his Valyrian wife, and then who Rhaenyra had with Mr. Strong, they're both there. Eventually, because they're 2 and 2, they're going to probably be betrothed to each other, and they'll just be paired off. But those Valyrian kids, the last of the Valyrian line there, are with Daemon and Rhaenyra. They get married, but then we see a final shot that shows that Rhaenyra has a bit of a heart and has allowed Lenore and his boyfriend to go off and just go into hiding. He shaves his head, shaves his hair so he's not recognizable by the Valyrian white hair, and they go off and kind of ride into the sunset. Sucks, he's breaking his mom's heart, he's breaking his father's heart, but he gets to go live the life that he wants to live. I think what's also cool about that, Daemon did not do that for his wife. Lenore's sister wanted to go off and go back home and wanted to live that life and felt restless. And Daemon now has sort of given the gift he couldn't give to his wife. He's given that to her brother, and has given him the gift to kind of go off and live the life that he actually wants to live. But my goodness, that was a very tumultuous funeral and tumultuous episode. Alicent is shown her fangs, and she's ready to fight. You named her kid. She's about to get that boy Prince Edmund completely ready. Aegon's going to come back with a vengeance. The big thing is that now they have a dragon, a full-grown dragon. And so sort of the bets are off. Like, they now have a bit of an even playing field. And so while Otto was giving Alicent that speech, like, your kid actually was kind of right. We are sort of even. Like, yeah, he lost an eye, but we now have a full-grown, ready-to-go dragon, and he's bonded with it. We're doing all right. And so I think that is going to be sort of the turning point, the chess piece that moves things a little bit in that direction. And then whenever we get what I've been told is the Battle of the Dragons or Dragon War, it's going to get real. Whenever King Viserys dies, whenever that happens, that happens soon, right? That man is hanging on for dear life. Once that happens, all bets are off. I think if Daemon and Rhaenyra do procreate and have a kid, it is going to be interesting where lineage goes and where all of this sort of ends up. But basically, who has the rightful claim to that throne? That's what we're all sort of waiting on and trying to figure out. But everybody now is just stocking their coffers. They're getting ready and prepping for the moment that when he dies, the game's afoot. A really, really fantastic episode. Again, my favorite episode of the year so far. The kids nailed it. That whole fight sequence and that intensity with King Viserys talking to the kids and kind of getting to the crux of it, even though everybody in that room knows what's going on, is so intense. Because Allison's sitting there like, I can't have him tell this boy that I'm the reason he heard that those kids are bastards. Like I can't, because she's been doing everything to show it, and King Viserys knows she feels that way because they've had those conversations. So in that moment, she's like, "Please do not throw me under the bus." And she has this look like, "Please, boy, don't do this." And he becomes wise and throws it to his boy, and that boy knows what he's doing. Like, nah, ain't nobody, ain't no mama, ain't nobody. Everybody know. That was a smart way to play that, and that was just a very intense puzzle sequence that you don't really get when you go big. Like I think when you're doing the family lineage and you're talking to this many people within a home, it's a smart way to like. I know I've complained a lot about everything kind of being smaller than Game of Thrones, where everything's about just this family and in this world, but you don't get a dramatic sequence like that if you don't kind of keep it all in house. But kudos, Chef's Kiss, fantastic episode. We got three more, I believe, before the end of the season. What did you guys think about this episode called Driftmark? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.